We're going to begin the Falls Township Board of Supervisors meeting, October 2nd, 2012. We'll begin with the salute to the flag, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Pullen, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Galloway?
Here.
Here.
Mrs. Morgan?
Here.
Mr. Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Rocco?
Here. Okay, thank you. Regular viewers of our program will notice that we have one of our cast members missing here. Mr. Gray, Township Manager, is ill, so he is not here. Sitting in his place is Mrs. Rukoff, our Finance Director. So she's, I think you've had to sit in for him before at some point.
Yes,
You know, because, thank you very much. Okay. Before we begin our agenda, we do have a guest this evening. Chairman of the Bucks County Commissioners, Robert Lockery, is here and would like some time to talk about, to introduce himself and obviously talk a little bit about things going on at county level. So we're glad to have him, and feel free to come to the microphone, Mr. Lockery.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Oh, that's applause. That's good. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. And the purpose of me being here is I'm trying to get out to all 54 of the municipalities. I'm not trying to do it in 1 year. That proved to be a little too tough. So I'm spreading it out across this year and next year with really the motivation to introduce myself. I'm new in this position now. It feels like I've been here a long time now, but it's only been a little less than 2 years, and was appointed last year when Jim Cawley became Lieutenant Governor, and this year I have the privilege of serving as chairman, and so I wanted the opportunity to introduce myself, get to know each of the municipalities, the supervisors, the elected officials, tell you a little bit about what our priorities are at the county, what some of my focus has been this year in terms of particular efforts, and then have a little bit of dialogue to listen to some of your issues, what you think we need to be concerned about or we should be paying attention, and you were able to share a little bit with me earlier. So I appreciate this opportunity. There are many things that the county's involved with, as you know, and I'm not going to get into the detail of all of those. So I thought I would just highlight a few and talk about what are our priorities. And the first one I want to share is, and I'm sure it's a priority of yours as well, every municipal government I've spoken to is this is right on the top of their radar, and that is the dealing with your budget and dealing with managing that budget and how we are doing that in these difficult economic times. We at the county have a little over a $460 million budget, and about half of that is geared towards what I would call health and human services. So all the services we provide in terms of work with the Area Agency on Aging, our children and youth, our mental health, MHDP programs, nursing, the public health department. We're talking about mosquitoes and all those types of things. But the budget has been a big focus for us this year because in order to get into this year, we had some difficult decisions to make, and we're in the process, if you've been reading the paper, of implementing or carrying out some of those decisions that we knew we needed to make in terms of meeting this year's budget. Our revenue has not been increasing, and we have had to deal with recently with some layoffs. But before we got to that point, what we knew we needed to do to manage this budget this year was look at a reduction in our workforce, and we've been carrying that through the course of this year, primarily through attrition, through a hiring freeze, through the retirements of employees, and then trying to reshape and those people, or I should say reshape, but use the existing employee base to meet some of those services that others would have been meeting at that time. And that has gotten us fairly far along in the process of where we needed to be to reduce our workforce. And unfortunately, we were in the position this year and just in the middle of it now with some layoffs that we had to do roughly 24, 25, 26 employees. It's been a difficult process for us to go through, but I think in doing this will set us in a stronger position and a stronger foundation as we look at the budget for next year and the things that we need to do, because there are some very core services that we need to provide. There are areas where we can't lay off, where we have to have certain ratios with employees, and a lot of those things have to do with public safety, with nursing, with areas like that. So it's been a very difficult year for us in managing the budget that way, but our staff has been doing a good job. The three commissioners have been pretty much on the same page. It hasn't been easy, but we're working through that. And I think as a result of those efforts and as a result of the things that we've taken a look at, we will be in a much stronger position as we go into next year and the following year. Been challenging our team to look at multi-year budgeting, thinking strategically about where we're going to be, some of those investments that we need to make, and then dealing with the issues from the state. I mentioned that half of our budget, so nearly $224 million, it goes to Health and Human Services. About 80 to 85% of that is funding that comes from the state. Some of it comes from the federal government, not directly to us, but through the state. With those dollars being reduced, that puts us in a position where we need to think how we can still provide those services. And so, as I said earlier, it's required us to make some difficult decisions, but I think we've made them. I think we've made the right choices, and we're going to continue to monitor and manage that budget. One of the big projects that's been on the front burner for the county has been the construction of a new Justice Center, which started last year, 2 years ago, and the parking garage that was built before that. If you've had the opportunity to be in Doylestown recently, you can see there's a large crane that is currently right in the middle of town. It's the highest structure right now, and the steel is going up. And actually, a Bucks County business is doing that. Grassi and Sons, which is located in Bensalem, they're erecting all of the steel. In fact, we just had a report last week that where we are right now in the project, and we're probably about 28-30% complete or in that process, better than half of the contractors are Bucks County firms. And that's been a good thing to help back into the economy, help with the employment as well. We anticipate that facility, that new Justice Center, being completed at this point, probably the spring of 2014. So that, as you can see, is a major project that the county has, the largest capital project the county's had in its history. And on the tail of that is what we do with the existing courthouse. So we have an existing courthouse of which, for argument's sake, roughly half, a little bit more than half, is being vacated as they move into the new Justice Center. We just recently hired a firm that is going to do our planning, our reuse planning for that facility. And our goal, one of my goals, and I think it's consistent with all the commissioners, is how we reduce the size of our footprint in county government that's outside of that building. And what I mean by that is we either own or lease several properties in and around the Doylestown borough proper area, where we have area agency on aging is in a building. Our children and youth workforce is in 30,000 square feet in another office building that we lease. Our HR department is in another building. So this is going to give us an opportunity to pull them back in, reuse existing space, reduce overhead and expenses out there, and it'll also give us an opportunity as we go through to think of better adjacencies and efficiencies within the courthouse, particularly with those service providers and how they're working. In addition, it'll give us an opportunity to look at some new investments when it comes to technology and how, it's kind of hard to get in and do technology upgrades into a building when people are working and life is going on a daily routine. With the vacating of the courthouse, new planning for the reuse of it, we're looking at some innovative ideas of maybe not getting to them right away, but at least setting ourselves up for the future, because we know technology is always quicker than, at least my experience in the last 2 years, than government can react to. But we're just trying to think ahead of what that means in terms of reducing our footprint. in physically in the Doylestown vicinity, and then putting that into the courthouse and getting better efficiencies. And so we're going to look at some things about using kiosks and other technology that will help us do that and provide better service and a better user environment for the consumers, for the residents, for people that are coming to the courthouse, and in many instances trying to find better ways to use like our Lower Bucks Government Center and allowing them to have better access to things in that office instead of just having space, being taken up in the courthouse. So that's a major project and a major endeavor that we're working on, trying to have a seamless transition to that. As I said, the new Justice Center will be done in the spring of 2014, and we're starting the planning now so we can, just have that fall into line. So that's a major project that we are focused on. And with our budget and trying to deal with that, we're trying to work our way through that, and we are making good progress towards that, and that is something that has my attention and the attention of the other commissioners right now as well. One thing I wanted to share with you that is a priority of all three of the commissioners, and something that I've been working on and paying particular attention to, is economic development. And we've about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, the county had formed an economic development advisory board, which came back to the commissioners, predates me, with recommendations on how to improve economic development, improve communication and coordination between the various economic development agencies. And there were about 6 core objectives, and I'm not going to go into all of them. I'll touch on one and then spend a little bit of time on the second one, because I think it's more germane to my meeting with you here tonight. But the overall idea that we're looking at is how we we use the word one-stop shop, basically how we can have a more seamless, coordinated economic development effort. We have many economic development agencies, and many agencies that are involved in economic development, not just with loans and tax credits, but hosting business seminars, startup assistance for new businesses, workforce development, and things of that nature. So we have been looking and working very closely with the various entities that are involved in that, and from the Redevelopment Authority to the Industrial Development Authority, the Economic Development Corporation, our chambers of commerce, everybody getting on the same page, figuring out how we can do a better job of delivering services to existing businesses that are here, businesses that are here that want to grow, and then also bringing in new businesses to the county. I've had the opportunity in my experience professionally to do a lot of work with economic development, and to do a lot of work, quite frankly, right here in Falls Township. I was back when the enterprise zone started, I was the original enterprise zone coordinator, and I was sharing with Bob earlier that at the port, what it was. Actually, it was Novolog. Before Novolog, I think it was Atlantic Marine. And when we in Atlantic Marine Terminal, I think, is who was there before Novolog in terms of the private capacity. And when we started the Enterprise Zone program, we actually started the announcement, or had the announcement at Novolog at that time. And I've been involved in probably about 3 or 4 development projects at U.S. Steel, at KIPC. So that is obviously something that I'm familiar with, but is obviously a big area that we have a focus on. And we'll continue to in terms of working with companies that want to locate there, and not just the big companies, but also trying to work with the smaller mom and pop, the retail businesses as well, that are economic development, particularly working with the chambers of commerce and the Lower Bucks County Chamber of Commerce in this instance, and being able to just be a little bit more proactive with the businesses. One of the other core objectives or key recommendations from the EDAB report was the recommendation was to engage municipalities in economic development, and that was pretty much the statement. One of our goals is engage municipal partners. And so my question was, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? What are we doing? And I want to share with you, and I'll leave a document with you when I'm done here. We've just launched an initiative that we're calling the Municipal Economic Development Initiative, and it's being run and staffed and supported through the Bucks County Planning Commission. And the idea simply is to provide resources and expertise from the Planning Commission to the municipalities as it relates to economic development issues. The example that we drew this from, and I worked with Lynn Bush, who's the county's planning director, was you were talking about open space earlier. The county has an open space coordinator. The county has an agricultural preservation coordinator. So we have staff on board to work with the municipalities when it comes to those issues. My challenge to the Planning Commission was, well, why don't we have the same for economic development? And this isn't meant to be that the Planning Commission is involved in bringing businesses in. This is meant more as a resource for the elected officials in the municipalities that we could work with them in terms of looking at zoning, parking issues when it comes to downtowns, different permit applications, just providing resources. And I'll leave you some information about what that program entails. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of program. I mean, all 54 municipalities in the county are unique and different. The economic needs of Falls Township are a lot different than they are in, say, Springfield Township or Quakertown Borough. So we've been very careful to say, hey, look, we're not telling anybody what to do. We're not saying this is, here's our program or our formula. We're just saying we have the resources and the staff at the Planning Commission that we think we could help the local elected officials, if they want it, to help with some of their strategic planning, economic development planning on a go-forward basis. And so part of that deals with what we're doing at the county right now and trying to repurpose and realign some of the things that county government does. And so if the Planning Commission has been very active in, as I said, open space coordination, open space plans, greenway plans, and things like that, I think not that we've done it all, but we've done a lot. I think it's now time for that staff and the expertise that's there to start to focus and look at economic development. So we're able to work with boroughs. Right now we just got, I think, 3 boroughs that have signed up with the county: New Britain Borough, I think Percy Borough, and I think Yardley Borough, that we're working with them on particular issues that are of concern or that they need to strategize on so they can help improve economic development in their communities. And I'll leave some information about that before I'm done so you can take a look at that. And hopefully what that will do is allow us to engage municipal partners in a way that we could be a little bit more proactive with you as opposed to being reactive. We're still reviewing land development plans the way the Planning Commission does, but in terms of planning and thinking through of areas that you want to rezone or that you want to look at for revitalization corridors, now we're willing and have and dedicated the time and the resources and the staff to say, hey, we can help you with that. We can at least help plan, give you some guidance so you would have that information there, instead of having to go out and get it on your own. So we're in the beginning of it. We just started. We actually announced this back at the Grange Fair in August, and we'll continue to roll that out. And I'm using the opportunity now in front of the municipalities to share a little bit about that. So those are some major things that I've been focused on in terms of the budget and looking at the budget on a multi-year basis. The planning for the existing courthouse, the reuse planning for that, and obviously just managing the current construction of the Justice Center, and economic development is a big one. One other one that I'd like to touch on and be happy to take some questions has to do with the radios. And I don't know if that was a question that you might have for me tonight, but with the narrow banding, just to explain that to the public, we were under an FCC mandate and I never get the technical terms correct, but we're basically mandated to move from one way frequency to another frequency to clear up the bandwidth on one of those frequencies. It was a mandate by FCC. We had a deadline of January 1, 2013. That deadline has been removed. The mandate is still there, but the deadline has just kind of gone away through various acts of Congress. But it came to us, and 2 or 3 years ago, when we had to pay attention to this, we started to make some movements in that direction. And so this is costing the county probably $40 million when it's all said and done. That includes the new equipment, the new infrastructure, and the radios as well. So how does that impact Falls? It impacts your police, EMS, and fire. And I think at this point, I hope I'm correct in saying this, that I think that we've received most, if not all, of the information from police, your EMS units, your fire companies in terms of the number of radios that they need and information like that. We're moving forward with the project because we need to change. It'll put us ahead of the game, plus we needed to do the upgrade in the equipment anyway in terms of the communication, the better communication that we will have. question that is frequently asked of me is, well, how does the municipality pay for those radios? Or the fire and the companies ask the same, and the EMS ask the same as well. And the answer is we're going to do the same thing that we did apparently, I guess, 10 or 11 years ago when we did a new upgrade to the system, which is we'll borrow the money. We'll buy the radios, and then we'll loan the money at the same rate to the municipality or to the fire company or to the EMS, depending on how your budgets are looking like that, at the same rate. So I don't know if that was one of your questions in regards to the narrowbanding project, but I think for budgetary purposes and planning purposes, that's probably an expenditure that could start next year. Now, I don't know if Falls, I know last year Falls Township's police through the SWAT applied for funding, and I know you applied again this year. You were successful last year, and we approved that to move on to the redevelopment authority. I'm not sure if Falls was in the queue with some of the municipalities applied for that grant monies to help defray some of the costs of those radios. I'm not sure if the township.
We actually budgeted in this year's budget. About a year ago, we started planning for the fact that we were going to need radios for our police department as well as all 3 fire companies in Falls. And so we have that money in our budget for this year. And we haven't purchased the radio simply because, as you said, the mandate was lifted. And so that's certainly, imagine that we would just continue and carry that money over to next year. And it's something that it was a load off the minds of a lot of, especially our firefighters, who were looking at where are we going to get this money from, and so we've told them that we're going to cover the cost of those radios, so they're free to use their resources in better ways just within their own departments.
That's great. So for your budget plans, I don't think you'll have to expend those dollars this year. Next year, because we'll be looking to make the purchase. Some of the radios can be purchased now, because I know some fire companies in particular kind of joined together, pulled together in grant applications, and we're working with Motorola. You can choose not to have a Motorola phone because the system will work with another phone. The problem is the county won't be in a position to service those phones, just the way those contracts and the number of radios that we're buying. But our folks, our team has done a great job. There's been some good communication. Hopefully it's been felt that way here, but I know throughout the county in terms of number of radios, what it means, the timing of that, and I believe that those expenditures you can count on happening in 2013. So that's it, and I'm happy to take any questions. I just wanted to share a little bit about what's on our radar. There's a lot of things that we're focused on, but I think in terms of our budget, dealing with the new Justice Center and the reuse planning for the existing one, and then our particular focus on economic development, those are some things that I wanted to share with you this evening, and then hear from you about some things that I need to keep my eye on for you, and what some of the concerns or issues that you have here at Falls Township.
Okay. Well, certainly we thank you for coming and for giving us, as you said, the vision of where the county is going. I'll open up for board members. I don't think board members were expecting to sort of, they weren't told to prepare for questions, but certainly if any comments or concerns or questions for Commissioner Lockery.
It was a pleasure meeting you this evening.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, I'd be happy.
Sure.
Thank you for coming.
Sure.
I was kind of pricked up my ears when you were talking about economic development, and you mentioned revitalization services. Without going into a whole bunch of detail, does this mean that if we were to look at an area that we were looking to revitalize, I don't know, a street area perhaps, a major boulevard, perhaps even Route 1, that maybe instead of going to a design firm, we'd come to the county? Or how does the county imagine being supportive to a township?
So, very good question. I think what we can do, we'd have to try to sit down with you to figure out what it is the issue is, or what the area is, and begin to work with you on some planning. We don't have the capability or the capacity to do design plans, but we certainly have the capacity and the capability to work with you to put together the facts, to take a look at the area, to look at zoning, to look at whatever the issues might be that could lead up to the fact of creating a design plan at some point. So if you wanted a redevelopment plan, or if you wanted to identify an area for revitalization, our planning commission could work with you to go through at least all the beginning aspects of that, what that means. And again, if it's a street corridor, taking a look at the number of businesses that are there, doing surveys, looking at the zoning that's there, trying to understand what some of the impediments might be to economic development as they relate, on a planning level in terms of zoning, parking. I'm just trying to think of some of the common ones that usually come up. So yeah, I mean, that would be a great dialogue to have. Lynn Bush would be ecstatic to come and listen and take a look at those areas that we could work with you on. And that might result in, getting enough work done that you'd say, hey, now we've saved a lot of money in that process. We could probably spend some more money on the design or bringing in new ideas for that area. But we could work with you to at least prep and provide the information and some of the early on planning that will give you a better position to understand what do we really need to do along Route 1 or at some particular area that you've identified.
Okay, thank you. It'd be great. It'd be a pleasure to work with Lynn. We've talked with her before, and so we have a nice relationship with her already.
Yeah, I will. When I'll walk up here and hand you a couple of these sheets, and it kind of, again, it's not a one size fits all, and this is all we can do. We've left it purposefully to be flexible to because every municipality's got different needs and different issues to deal with in different areas of their town, and we wanted to be in a position that we could say, hey, we want to give you our support and resources and work with you so you don't have to spend some of those dollars that you typically might by going out to another planning, not to take business away from anybody, but just to be in a position to help at least with some of the initial planning.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Questions or? Yeah.
No, I just want to thank you for coming out and filling us in on a few things. So
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
Thank you for letting me
Yeah.
come here. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Well, let me give you this.
Okay.
And then you guys, this should answer, I think, some of your questions that you had.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate it. It was good meeting all of you.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to item number 1 on our agenda, which is public comment. Roland Kinney, first name on the list.
Roland Kenny Falls Township. Betsy, glad to have you. Tell Peter we'll keep him in our prayers, make sure he gets better. I don't know if this is going to get televised because our last meeting lasted 2 days. I don't know who's in charge of that, but it's a blank state, and people that do watch it probably won't watch it no more because darn near a month or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there's nothing on TV.
Yeah, from what I understand, it was a Verizon issue. Yeah.
Buy a new thing. Always
new-
buy a new thing.
I think we did.
Yeah, I think that was some of the
Switch
problem.
services and are in the process of changing.
Yeah.
It didn't have anything to do with us. It was.
We've got a lot of money. We don't have enough money to buy Verizon.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I'm not going to keep you here all night, but I just want to let you know. Last meeting I mentioned about Officer Fox being bushwhacked and killed. You might not know it, but our president of Senior Center, that's his grandmother, Mary Valeri. So if you don't mind, I'd like a moment of silence for that young man.
Certainly.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Good night and God
Thank
bless
you.
you.
Thank you very much. Guido Mariani?
See if you could follow my concerns here. My response to board comment at the last meeting regarding what I consider to be an environmental obsession, this Byles Island, is that I consider the entire proposed program, as it was here, as it was distributed here. Now, the supervisors approved this master plan, as I understand it, in 2010. And that was created by ACT engineers, supposedly based on township residents' input. I don't believe that's what happened. I think the input was primarily from some environmental groups, both locally and regionally, and I can tell you, not township residents, at least the ones I know. The board then agreed to spend up to $420,000 on engineering costs and other expenses to complete the DCNR grant. And at the last meeting, after voting for $45,000 to have ACT continue, ACT asked for an additional $220,000 to do the designing and permitting for Byles Island North, or Phase 1, which you gentlemen were discussing at that time. That $220,000, I think, will be forthcoming quickly, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman. Now, Byles Island is a recreational environmental program, it says right here, that includes 4 phases. This is my concern about the whole project. Phase 1 includes, okay, the boardwalk, bird watching program, fishing pier, and so on, but my concern is I don't think it'll stop at Phase 1. I don't think you'll ever stop this at Phase 1. I think it'll continue. And it goes on to Phase 2 and 3, and that's when we get into the marina, the boat ramp, ice skating pads, so on and so forth, and it ends with Phase 4, and that's when we really get into a nut I don't think that we can carry, and rather than go through all these things that we supposedly want to do with this program, I would suggest that people get a copy of this, and you can get this right off the internet. Now, Mr. Snipes had said at the last meeting that he was happy because he believes that this program has firm support. Well, I don't think that firm support is from township residents, none whom I know or discussed it with. I believe that support comes from local, regional, environmental groups who will use our money to satisfy their agenda on this environment. Now, I don't see any substantial firm commitment for funding other than what's going to come from Falls Township. I don't see any, none. And the other thing I don't understand is how many private sector investors have shown any interest at all in this. If this is such a hot thing, it's such a good thing, why don't we have any private investors knocking our door down? So, unless there's some other plan for massive funding for this, because it's not going to stop at Phase 1, I don't think there's any intention to have it stop at Phase 1. That we don't know about or hasn't been made public, and I'm talking about something like a casino, and I'm serious as a heart attack, I think it's going to take something like that. This township can't afford this. You take a good look at this program. We can't afford this program. This, to me, is a radical environmental agenda that this township is going to satisfy. Ms. Becky suggested that bird watching, as it does in Cape May, that's going to, because it's in Phase 1, is going to create an economic engine. The only thing Phase 1's going to do is going to create a Pac-Man who's going to come through and is going to consume all of our assets and all of our township residents' future. I really believe that. I wish you'd reconsider this whole thing. We don't need it. We don't want it. Overwhelmingly, we don't want it. And most of all, gentlemen, believe me, we can't afford it. So think about it. Consider what you've done last week. Please don't go any further with this program. Thank you for listening to my considerations and concerns.
Okay, thank you. Edgar Latuma?
Yes, good evening. How are you? I talked to the president of Falls Township, and I think so many times they come here and ask you, we need a water heater for the concessions fund, and always the board say no. Now I talked to him Falls Township will be able to pay that. That way, we're not gonna use township money. I want to see, because we really need that. You know, you go every Sunday, you go to the games. Okay, they sell hot dogs, I think so, something like that. It's going to help a lot if they got a hot water there. We don't have any hot water in the bathrooms either. I have no idea. I hear some, they say, no, the township, they don't want to install, they don't want to put it there. I want to find out why is the reason, if the Falls Township wants to pay, why is the reason you don't let the club or put the water heater over there? And another thing, I was there Saturday, Sunday, there was some games. I didn't see anything open yet for the fall soccer for the fields. It's supposed to be second week in October, I said last meeting. I don't know what is going on. They told me we need only one more permit. And this is the time to start doing, because before the winter, the head of the winter is coming, this is the time to start doing. And another thing, the South Olds Boulevard Bridge, the same they were saying that in 2 weeks, last month it was going to be Friday. I understand you want to get the best price, but that is, we don't hear nothing else. And thank you for listening, and I want to see what is going to go with the water here.
Okay.
If you let the club to install that.
Well, I'll address some of them right now. In terms of the fields and South Olds Boulevard, I actually just talked to Mr. Sullivan today about this. Mr. Sullivan, can you give us an update on those two projects?
Yes. We had the pre-construction meeting for the soccer fields last Friday, and they intend to be starting Monday the 8th. We have the permit that we needed. We got that right before we had the meeting.
Okay.
So that will be starting very soon.
Monday.
The culvert, we're going out to bid for the installation next week. So that we won't have bids back for that until sometime at the end of October. We'll have to go through our review period of the bids, and the earliest we can probably start the culvert installation will be in December.
All right. You see.
But we did award the actual culvert. We've agreed to purchase the culvert. Now we have to find a contractor to install it.
Okay. Yeah, I know the township's trying to save some money.
Well,
I understand
it's saving money. It's also, we have to follow, there's state laws and bidding process that we have to follow. We can't, if it was a small thing, less than $18,000, we could pretty much just do it pretty quickly. But something this big, obviously, the first bids that came back was incredibly too high, way too high. And so Mr. Sullivan's decision was to break up purchasing the actual equipment, purchasing the actual structure itself separately, and then going out and hiring somebody to just install it. And so we did the first part. In terms, we've awarded a bid to actually purchase the what we need, the structure. Now we have to find somebody who's going to actually put it in for us, and we have to go through the bidding process. It's a state requirement. We would have liked to have done this a lot faster if the bids had come back in the springtime with what we were hoping they would be, or should have been, not hoping, but what they should have been. This project would probably be finished by now.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we can't control that.
Right.
And in terms of the water heater,
Yes.
this is at the concession stand at the phase one at the sports side of the park. And the issue regarding the water, putting hot water in there, is that we have an issue with, I guess it's the health department, where we have to we get close to having to put in certain equipment involving, was it grease trap? Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Clark?
Yeah, I believe that was the problem, was the grease trap.
Yeah, once we start putting in more equipment, now we have to put in a grease trap, and the grease trap is, I remember estimates of a lot, tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, about $40,000.
Department of Health approval and maintenance
yeah, because
costs.
As long as it's a bare bones concession stand, I know. I mean, I've used it before. Organizations I've been part of, we've used it. It's very bare bones, but the reason it is because if we go any further, and that's actually we had the same problem at the Pinewood Pool. If we put in any more equipment, it starts to turn into an actual kitchen, and the Board of Health classifies it as a kitchen, and now we have to put in grease traps, which is around $40,000 worth of equipment, on top of anything else.
Maybe this is something we could have brought up with
the
Commissioner Locker at the Board of Health and help us out a little bit.
So I mean, I understand the concern. I know it's been sort of a regular complaint to have, and I appreciate the efforts of the soccer club to actually pay for the equipment to heat the water.
Yeah.
But that starts us down a slope where all of a sudden now we get in trouble with the county health department. We've got to install other stuff, and it's unfortunate, but that's the answer. okay? We certainly can look at if there's any other option of what we can do there, and we've kind of talked a little bit about before. But, you know, that's the trap we fall into if we do that.
Yeah, if you, the board, can talk to the hire who's going to just try, because we really need that.
Yeah.
It's going to be another help for the club. Like last week, I was in Middletown, over there, refing some games. They sell a lot of more food over there. They sell burgers, you know, I think that helps a lot of the club.
Sure.
And you see, there's a lot of people go Saturdays, and now this weekend they're going to have the Columbus Day tournament. The Michael is going to use some fields there. There's going to be a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Well, if you, in the future, maybe budget something and try to help to do that, and the club is, that you can talk to the club, see how much the club can put some money, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Those are all the names on the list. Anyone else wish to speak? See no hands. All right, move on with item 2 on our agenda. Let's consider the T&M proposal for engineering services for the 2013 road program. Mrs. Rukoff, and then I'm guessing we'll go to Mr. Sullivan for a little bit.
The board's packet contains a memo from Mr. Jim Sullivan of T&M Associates dated September 28, 2012, regarding a proposal for professional engineering services for the 2013 Falls Township Road Improvement Program. The following roadways have been scheduled for full-depth road reconstruction: Valley Road, Peaceful Drive, Bernard Drive, Rice Drive, Floral Drive, Walton Drive, and Fletcher Drive. The following roadways have been scheduled for mill and overlay: Bernard Drive, Christina Court, Anna Marie Drive, Angela Avenue, Laura Way, Leisha Drive, Rice Drive, Andrew Drive, Mark Anthony Court, Kirby Drive, Hedgerow Drive, and Howley Drive. The total cost of the proposal is $717,908. The board is asked to consider this proposal for engineering services.
Okay. We're having a little fun with Mr. Sullivan earlier today, looking at this proposal. His daughter is going to be getting married soon.
Next year, as a matter of fact.
Next year. So
Convenient.
But just give us an idea, Mr. Sullivan. Obviously, you know, this is pretty, you know, boilerplate from other proposals that you've given us in terms of what's involved in the $717,908. What will T&M? What are we paying T&M to do with this money?
All right, there's 5 major tasks involved in this project. First task being survey and base mapping. We do field surveys of all the roads that we're either going to reconstruct or mill and overlay, prepare base maps, and from that we can do our engineering design. Task 2 is subsurface utility investigation and coordination. We'll be doing core samples of all of the streets that we're looking at this year. Some of the mill and overlays may change to full depth reconstruction. When we were working on Valley Drive this year, we started putting some storm pipe. We found out the road wasn't quite as well constructed as we had thought it was. It had been reconstructed about 15 years ago, but not to current specs. And we felt we should actually make that reconstruction. That's why it's on the list this year. The same is true for Howley Drive, Hedgerow Drive, and Kirby. We'll be looking at those more carefully than the other ones. They're a little bit newer roads. Anna Marie, Leash, they're all newer roads. Engineering design services, as I said, is one of the elements of the proposal. And then bid phase services, and then construction, observation, and administration, where we have 2 inspectors or 1 inspector full-time, depending on how many crews the contractors are running, for the duration of the project, which we figure is about 9 months.
Okay. All right, comments or questions from board members? Mr. Galloway?
No comments.
Mr. Snipes?
Mr. Chairman, I believe these numbers are in line with former engineering services offered to the township for the road program. So the numbers, while they're big, don't exactly shock me, but maybe someone has some other information than I do. But that's all I have.
Yeah. Mr. Dens?
No comments or questions.
Mr. Rocco?
I have none.
Wait, I have one. Would this number change if those other roads become full reconstruction?
No.
No. Okay.
The construction cost might change, and we may have to make one of those an alternate. But right now, the construction cost estimate is about $5.5 million, and we'll keep that the same, and the engineering cost will not change.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, what is the full number for our 2013 road program?
I think we're looking, well, I guess it sort of depends on us. I think we're looking around, what, 6.2, something like that?
6.2.
Okay.
So that just puts this in some context in terms of
Yeah, what was it this year?
budget.
Was it 5.7, 5.8, something like that? this year?
5.3, I believe. 5.8?
5.8.
5.8, okay. All right. One of the things, one of the questions I had, I don't think we've hit it, hit's a bad example, a bad term. I don't think we've had problems with gas lines this year as much as we have in the past. But it was last year, I guess, we were hitting a lot of gas lines. Is that something that, we expect to see with this, roughly in the same area of the township?
Yeah, we give all of our information, all our designs to both the water company and the gas company, and hopefully they get out ahead of us. And sometimes they get out far ahead of us, and sometimes they don't. This year, I believe the gas services have been moved, but not all the mains. So from time to time, we have coordination problems with the other utilities.
Okay. All right. Any public comment needed? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion then to award the professional engineering services for the 2013 road program to T&M Associates in the amount of $717,908?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay, item 3 on our agenda is consider a resolution for authorizing advertisement of sale of surplus equipment. We do this from time to time. We have some things that we're going to sort of put out to auction. Mrs. Rukoff, what are we looking to get rid of?
The township has 5 vehicles available for auction as they are now surplus equipment. They are a 1996 Ford Bronco, a 2002 Chevy Impala, 2005 Crown Vic, 2004 Crown Victoria, a 1995 Chevy Caprice Classic. The board is requested to approve authorization to advertise an auction of the various township vehicles.
Okay. And just to give you an idea of mileage, the Ford Bronco is over 121,000 miles on it. The Chevy Impala 2002 has over 145,000 miles on it. 2005 Crown Vic, almost 105,000 miles. 2004 Crown Vic, over 116,000 miles. 95 Chevy Caprice, about 78,000 miles. Was that the one that Mr. Gray was driving?
Yes, it is.
All right, okay. And it's literally, I think, believe he had to stop driving it, I think, because pieces of the engine were actually falling out of the structure of the vehicle. There's
There's a list of issues they all have.
a little bit of a rust issue.
The
So,
battery.
the battery was actually,
The
the
whole
battery
independent.
was literally being, I think there was duct tape involved in holding it into the structure of the car. He would have kept driving it, but, all right, comments or questions from board members? Mr. Galloway?
When would such an auction take place?
I believe that once we advertise, it can take place 30 days after.
All right, thank you.
Is that right, Mr. Clark?
I can't recall. I can look at the resolution we did previously.
Would you like us to wait? You can call Mrs. Gallagher. Ms. Gallagher? Is that right?
That was good.
No, I think as soon as we advertise it and I could look up what the advertising requirements are, then we can set the date and time for the auction.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mrs. Rukoff.
No questions, no.
Mr. Galloway, any more? Anything?
Oh, no,
Okay.
that was it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Mr. Rocco?
So where's the auction take place? Here?
Here.
It's not it's a closed
It's
bids.
sealed bids.
Sealed bids.
People can make an appointment to come in
See the
and walk
vehicle?
through and see the vehicles, and then they submit sealed bids by a set date and time, and
There's no minimum
All opened.
on any of these vehicles? There's no minimum?
I don't believe we set a minimum.
We don't have to
normally
accept
set
the
a
bids if we decide to
Oh, we
do
don't,
that.
oh, okay.
Right. Yeah.
Then if we don't get bids that the board wants to accept, then we can put it online.
Yeah,
Where
which,
there's more of an, where there's more, what is it, municipal, it's
Yes.
called, where it's open for a period of time and people can bid up until the time it closes, and then again, you get to award it or if you want to or not.
What about eBay? Are we allowed to do that? Something like that?
Yeah, I think you're essentially allowed to do all of that right now. I think Municipal is a little bit more set up for this. It's and it's a little bit more tighter time frame, so it's preferred by municipalities.
Yeah, I'd only asked when it might take place because my 12-year-old son is interested in the Crown Victoria, but I'm going to forbid him from that. It says
See the
it
list of issues these
doesn't start, parts missing, okay.
There is a list attached.
Yes.
Yeah,
You're going to have to tow it home.
right, yeah, he can push it maybe.
It's not happening.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
It doesn't start.
Yeah, and I think
Parts
we've talked
Parts
before, I think, we've had the, suggestion that maybe, because some of the bids that come in, and, as we're saying, and Mr. Galloway's pointing out, so, these cars are not in great shape. We may get very little money for these and offered to us. We don't have to accept them. We could even call local scrapyards and see what they're willing to give us. We might get more by taking it to a scrapyard than we would selling it. So we have that option as well. But this is something, we can look at. In the past, if some of these vehicles were in decent shape, we'd actually give them to if we weren't using them ourselves for something, we would offer them to the school district if they needed them for some of their security, things like that. But these vehicles are in really bad shape. So so all of those things are options for us. Okay, any other comments or questions? Any public comment? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion to authorize the advertisement of the sale of surplus equipment?
So moved.
Second?
Excuse me, this is a resolution, I apologize.
This is
It's
a
12-1223, sorry.
So
Motion,
moved.
okay. All right, 1223, motion made.
Seconded.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, next item on our agenda is authorizing advertisement to obtain RFPs, proposals from auditing firms to audit the finances of Falls Township. Mrs. Rukoff?
Yes, the township is requesting authorization to advertise for the audit of the December 31st, 2012 financial statements. RFPs will be sent out to local audit firms, and the board is asked at this time to consider authorizing advertisement.
Okay. All right, this is a standard thing. Townships this big, with a budget like ours, there are auditors who are elected. However, in a township this big, it makes more sense to bring in professional firms that do this kind of thing all the time, especially because government finance is different than private finance. Mrs. Rukoff has worked in this business for quite a while, as has Mr. Gray, and you've worked with the auditors, well, various auditors, but one of her tasks is to work with them as they audit the books, and they give us recommendations. And we've had very good audits ever since I've been here. Obviously, a testament to Mr. Gray and Mrs. Rukoff and their leadership in their department. And all the financial, the people here, all the department heads who handle finances and budgets of their own. So it's really not, I guess, a whole lot to discuss. Any questions regarding the process here? No? Everybody okay?
No.
Okay, any public comment needed? All right. Is there a motion to authorize the advertisement for financial auditors?
Make the motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 5, consider purchase of cameras for areas around the municipal building complex. I see Mr. Markey coming out. All right. Mrs. Rukoff?
The board is asked to consider the purchase of cameras for key areas around the municipal building complex as identified by the police department. Matt Markey's here to answer questions that you may have.
Okay. Mr. Markey, thank you.
Good evening.
And give us, if you don't mind, just break down for us, what, not necessarily where we're looking to put these cameras, maybe. That might not be a good idea to tell people exactly where they're going to go. But just, why we need them. I think one of the concerns, too, is if we're looking to do major work on this building or build a new one, are we investing money that we shouldn't be investing?
Okay. The cameras are a combination of increasing the quality of some of the cameras that are already around the building with better quality cameras, or filling gaps that we have. The police identified certain areas, without going into too much detail, that need better coverage. So when we did that walkthrough, technology-wise, we found that we can employ some newer technology cameras, 180 style cameras, where you can keep an entire area in one field of view using one camera, 4 cameras inside of it. So once we did the walkthrough around the building, identified all the locations that we can add to security, we then looked at the technology side, and then from there, It was to decide how much of it would be able to be transferred to a new complex. And using these type of cameras, which are IP-based, it's a newer technology, but it allows us to just use simple Cat5 wires instead of the more expensive analog systems that hook to DVRs with coax and other type of wire like that. So these cameras can easily be transported and used in a new facility. So we'll recover, we'll be able to use all of the cameras and all the wireless pieces. We'll just lose the wire and labor if you guys move to a new building.
Okay. All right. Do we have, well, I'll let other board members have comments or questions here. Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
Mr. Snipes?
No, thank you.
Mr. Dents?
I just know that Mr. Markey and Lieutenant Airy have been working on this for quite some time, and it's something that's much needed in the township. That's all I wanted to comment on.
Mr. Rocco?
I have no questions.
Okay. And we're anticipating a cost of around $40,000.
Yeah, we have the quote here from RF Design and Integration was $40,811. They gave us 2% off with a prepayment. I don't know if you guys are interested in that. They're really, we give them the money, 30 days before, they give us 2% off. So it's really up for you guys to decide if you want to take advantage of it.
Okay.
Now, they're not installing the equipment.
Yeah, they are responsible for the installation.
So
But everything is on CoStars. We had it reviewed, and everything passed there. In total, it's 11 cameras, but in reality, it's more like 27 angles covered. With the better technology, we get more views.
Okay.
I do have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
The cameras would allow us both a record of what happens that can be reviewed and also remote viewing. Someone could check in at any time and monitor different parts of the building. Is that how it works?
Yes. The individuals that are allowed to use the cameras in the police department, the officers that have access, they can access it from the cruiser if they need to.
Oh.
They can access it from home if there was a situation, so they can review tape. They can be reviewed in the building. So anywhere that we could install the client, they'd be able to check it out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Right. And this is something off of CoStars,
Yes.
correct? So we don't have to actually go out to bid on this.
Correct. And we've used RF in the past. I've used them for different projects, so no problems there. Their quality is pretty good.
Okay.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Shoot.
In the past, we've talked about businesses being able to get online with us with cameras. Would this enable that, or is that something else we're working on?
This is a part of that. Like, it all kind of ties into the same server, but we're still hashing that out from a perspective of the support on the resident side or the business side, where they'd have to have enough bandwidth and things to support. So we're still hashing that out.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah, we've had discussions previously about cameras in different locations around the township and having sort of remote access. And the issue I know that you're working with right now is there's a local business that we're trying to, use their facility as an antenna basically, and there's some difficulty sort of getting them to.
Falls Township's actively trying to go into the, technology-wise and use cameras around town at key locations and intersections. We just need to work on the back-end stuff. So until that gets squared away, we're at a standstill. But it's being pursued and gotten some good results lately. So
Good.
hopefully.
That's good. Any public comment? See no hands? Okay, so we'd be looking to authorize the purchase of the equipment from RF Design Integration Incorporated in the amount of $40,811. Obviously, the 2% discount would be nice if we can get that. So if there are no more comments or questions, is there a motion then to make that purchase?
What exactly is the motion regarding the prepayment discount? That we would spend up to, or how?
I guess up to $40,811, and obviously, hopefully, we could do.
Save 800.
I'm not sure the motion has to include, the pre-purchase part. So just
Up to.
yeah,
What's the name of the company?
RF Design and Integration Incorporated.
Yeah.
Make a motion that we purchase from RF Design and Integration the cameras for around the municipal building in the amount not to exceed $40,811.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, thank you.
you.
I'm rolling. We are back up and running on the TV.
okay.
We're good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Markey. All right, brings us, we don't have a need for an executive session this evening. Manager comments? Mr. Gravy phoning something in, or did he?
No, he has nothing for this evening.
Oh, okay, all right.
No Park and Rec announcements,
Park
nothing?
and Rec, nothing.
Nothing.
Otto the Clown's not the month off, I guess.
Clowns, no balloons, nothing.
Okay, there is, let's see, I do see a letter of extension for Mr. Hecker with regards to Viking Associates. Okay, he is looking, please accept this letter as an extension of that deadline on behalf of the applicant through and including October 31st, 2012. Any comments or questions on,
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I believe Mr. Gray is going to contact Mr. Hecker and try to get a different extension.
okay, that's
Since,
fine.
We're already
All right.
extended through October 31st, so he'll get another one to extend probably through the end of the year or beyond.
All right, no problem. We'll hold off on that. Okay, thank you. All right, go to board comment. Let's see, we'll start with Mr. Rocco.
I don't have any comment tonight, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dents.
No, no comment tonight.
All right, Mr. Snipes.
I have a comment tonight.
Uh-oh.
Very exciting comment Mrs. Pullen had asked us to make. There is really an awesome party coming up on October 6th, 7 p.m. to midnight. That's at Levittown Fire Company number 1. There is going to be an oldies, looks like an oldies dance party. Is that right, Mrs. Pullen? Yes, oldies dance party with none other than Jerry Blavitt, the Geeter with the heater. So, if you have wanted for years, and I actually have been to a bunch of oldies parties and had a great time, but never partied with the Geeter, here is your chance.
Are you old enough to do that?
No age requirement here. I think all ages are allowed. All right, this is a great. So for $35 per person includes the buffet, beer, soda. There's a cash bar available as well. At Colonial Hall Catering, of course, at Levittown Fire Company number 1, 701 Fallsington Tullytown Road. This is a great opportunity to support the fire company and also to have a really fun dance party. So I highly recommend it. And we'll see everyone there, yes?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they're all nodding, yes. I think I will unfortunately be driving a hayride. Otherwise, I would be there, but if I can get away, that really would be fun. So thank you all for doing it, and it's like a great time. Thanks, that's it.
Pass that down.
Okay,
Oh, you want, yes.
Mr. Galloway.
No comment this evening.
Okay, I just had a couple of quick things. First, I wanted to apologize. At our last meeting, it sort of occurred to me afterwards that sort of neglected to make mention of the Jewish holidays that had passed. And so for the residents of Falls Township, happy Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Happy New Year. So we apologize for neglecting to mention that. Also, earlier today, there was a decision from a Pennsylvania state judge regarding the voter ID law, which had passed and was the subject of a lot of debate and discussion. The decision of the judge was that while the law could stand as is, the requirement of the law that voters could not vote if they did not produce an ID, that could not stand. And so in other words, if you go to the voting booth, to the polls on election day in roughly a month, and you're asked to have a voter, if you have a picture ID, and you don't have one, you can still vote. They're not permitted to keep you from voting. And if I'm correct, I think Mr. Clark, one of the things was that you could vote by provisional ballot, but that's not true either. You were just allowed to vote regularly.
Allowed to vote.
Right. So they're going to ask you they might ask you for an ID, a photo ID. If you have one and you want to show it, fine. You don't actually have to show it because they can't keep you from voting anyway. And I guess just to clarify what some of the concern was with this, I know the major point of concern was that it was a specific kind of picture ID. Any regular picture ID wasn't going to work. For example, I have an ID, like many people probably do. Certain Mr. Galloway probably has the same thing. I have an ID for my school. It has my photograph, it has the name of the school, it has my name on it, and that's obviously for security reasons at my school. That would not count. I couldn't use that to vote. Even though it's issued by technically a government, which is what a school is, even though it has my picture, it has my name on it, I could not use that. It's not a state-approved ID, and it doesn't have an expiration date. That's actually the big sticking point. Mr. Clark's daughter, who goes to the University of Pittsburgh, has an ID, I'm sure, University of Pittsburgh ID, has her name, has her picture. She could not use that to vote, even though it's obviously, a state, a college, it's, accredited by the state, because it doesn't have an expiration date. And I think one of the interesting things when this case was before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, there was a Supreme Court justice who pointed out that the ID he wore to get into the Supreme Court building, which is a state-issued identification badge. It has his name and his photograph. He, as a state Supreme Court justice, couldn't use that ID to vote because it didn't have an expiration date and it wasn't an approved. So I think that was the sticking point regarding this. The judge decided, that there's an injunction on that. And so I know I got mail recently from the state about, what you need to show and this kind of thing, and something about the law. At this point right now, and I don't know if it can go to another court, if there's any chance of it being of this decision being overturned. I guess you'd have to go to the Supreme Court.
It would have to go back up to the Supreme Court. The Corbett administration has indicated that they will probably not take it up to the Supreme Court before November's election, and it is doubtful that the Supreme Court would be able to hear it in that period. Not doubtful, but it doesn't seem as if they would hear it that quickly.
Yeah. So I know there was a lot of concern, a lot of people worried about, do I have the right ID? Will I be able to vote? And the judge's decision today kind of clears any roadblock that might be there for people to vote. Obviously, you have to be a registered voter. You have to make sure that you're voting at the right polling place. If you've moved recently, make sure you're going to the right place to vote. If you change your driver's license, as you should when you move, then your voter ID should change as well. And I
Chairman,
think up until the end of this week is the deadline for registering to vote. I think it's the 6th. So, so if you're not registered to vote and you see this video sometime this week, I think actually we have voter registration forms here in the Township building. And there's actually a county office building just right near 5 Points, right near the Levittown Library. You could just drop off that form. You don't even have to mail it. Save yourself the stamp. So that's, and we want people to vote, and certainly I think we should, we're doing what we can to make it easy for people to vote. So, but I wanted to make people aware of that. Okay?
Could I ask you a question?
Yes.
On the issue of the IDs and the expiration date, I never understood why the law was requiring an expiration date. Can anybody make that clear? Anybody know?
Yeah.
I mean, I have my theories,
Yeah,
of
we have our
course,
theories.
about, but what?
Well, in many ways, I think they were trying to limit it to only a certain type of ID, driver's licenses. A cynic would say that many people who live, let's say, in the inner city in Philadelphia don't own cars, so they don't have driver's licenses, so they may have some other form of ID, but it doesn't have an expiration date on it, so they were trying to maybe make it a little tougher for those people to vote. I don't think it was ever fully explained why the ID had to have an expiration date on it. I think, as Mr. Harvey has pointed out, a Supreme Court justice pointed out that he had an ID that did not have an expiration date on it because his term never expires. But based on that, he would not have been able to use that to vote. I don't think that was ever fully explained by the legislature why the ID had to have an expiration date, because many people have an ID that may be from their job, may have an ID from the school that they go to, may have some other form of ID, but wouldn't necessarily have an expiration date on it.
It was the process of getting the IDs that was difficult as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I took my grandfather, who will be 95 on Saturday. A few months ago, we went to the bank. He wanted to close an account and open another account. And the woman said, "I know your grandfather. He's here 3 times a week, but he had no ID." And they couldn't actually do it. And eventually, he cleared that up, thought he was done with it. When he went to get his voter ID from 95 years ago, on his birth certificate, his middle name or something was spelled wrong. So again, the state wouldn't give him the voter ID for that reason. It was just a major problem for him to get an ID. He still didn't get one, I don't think.
But now he can vote.
Yeah, right, after 95 years. Now he can still vote, yes. I'm sure he's happy. I'll see him Saturday for his birthday.
Well, now that this is, I don't know that it's over, but now that this is not an issue for this election, I really hope that people will make even more of an effort to actually get out and vote. So I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
No,
Mr.
that's
Chairman.
fine. I was finished. So, all right, that's all. Oh, go ahead.
Is Felsington Day the 13th? Yeah.
Yes, actually, yeah, Mr. Rocco's reminding me. Fallsington Day is the 13th, okay, Saturday, 13th. We actually are, I was thinking it was after our next meeting, but it's not after our next meeting. So our meeting will be after that. So just to remind people of Fallsington Day, we've been, well, I'm not going to say anything about weather because I'll jinx it. But it's always a very good time. I know there's a lot of things, and I think usually the Falls Township Fire Company sort of piggybacks on that, and they have sort of an open house. October is Fire Awareness Month, and so remind you to sort of check your smoke detectors, and usually activities going on, firefighters going into the schools, and firehouses usually having some kind of open house this month. And that's always kind of neat, to just go there and see some of the equipment they have. It's really impressive. All three fire companies really have impressive amounts of equipment, and they're all volunteers, and they do a great job helping us, and so that's something to keep in mind too. That usually you can go to Fallsington Day, you're doing all the activities there, and there's all the shops, and the school has all kinds of stuff, and the churches in that area are doing all kinds of sales, and then you can sort of keep walking down the street and, on Yardley Avenue. You can get to the firehouse and take a look at what they have. So, but yeah, thank you.
Sure, yeah, I thought it was the 13th. One of the things I did hear was Fallsington School is going to have one of them big trucks where you can play video games in.
Oh, okay.
So I think the kids will probably enjoy that.
Yeah, there we go.
Mr.
Okay.
Kenny likes video games.
Yeah. You're there for that, I'm sure.
All right, so, well, thank you very much for your time, and we wish Mr. Gray a speedy recovery, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?